It's been another big year for the Alton Towers Resort. There's been plenty of different events, old and new. We had some new additions to returning events, as well as new entertainment across the park. In terms of rides and roller coasters, 2022 didn't see any new additions. In fact, we saw more closures and breakdowns than anything. But having said that, the 2022 season at Alton Towers has still been amazing, and things are only going to get better for the park over the next few seasons. In today's video, we're going to be looking back at the 2022 season at Alton Towers and rate all those big moments and events. But before we get into it, if you do enjoy watching this video, then please consider hitting that like button to let me know. And if you are new around here and you're feeling extra cheeky, then be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell so you don't miss a single thing, because we make plenty of theme park and adventure videos here at Acadie Adventures, which you don't want to miss. The opening day of the season is always the most exciting. The season runs from March until the start of November, so after 4 months it's always great getting back to Alton Towers, or any of the Merlin parks for that matter, and getting on your favourite rides and roller coasters. 2022 was no different. The park's opening day was great. There were a few issues at the start of the day with some rides not opening, but this is to be expected when the park's been closed for so long. The 2022 opening day had far less issues compared to the 2021 opening day, which didn't go very well at all in my opinion. This wasn't entirely due to Alton Towers. All the dark rides were closed due to the COVID restrictions. Nemesis broke down after one train at the start of the day, and also the Dark Forest was closed too. So yeah, 2022 was a much better start, and I believe we got on pretty much every roller coaster on that opening day. What I do remember prior to the opening day is that it was uncertain that the Smiley was going to reopen again at the start of the season, but luckily all the issues were fixed in time for that opening day. So having said all that, I'd give the 2022 opening in March a solid 7 out of 10. It would have been higher, but there wasn't any new additions or events on at the time, so it was just a regular day at Alton Towers, but it was great to get back on all those rides. I'm not going to stay on this event too much because, for one, I didn't vlog during this event, so I don't have much footage, but also because I didn't rate the event all that much. Now, I can see what Alton Towers were trying to do here, and overall it wasn't terrible. However, I do think that more could have been done with the Festival of Thrills. There was no entertainment on the big stage, there was just little stages dotted around in each of the themed areas. But what I did like about this is that each of those little stages, they had bands that were themed to that area and the ride, and I thought they did that really well, but it just didn't have that same vibe that you get at Mardi Gras or Oktoberfest. I wouldn't be too sad if it didn't return next year, but this is just my opinion. You may have loved it, but I just didn't rate it that much. So I'm going to give the Festival of Thrills a 4 out of 10. Now, I'm in no way saying that any of the bands at this event were bad. In fact, some of them were really good, but the 4 out of 10 is just for the event as a whole. You know what, it doesn't actually seem that long ago since Mardi Gras. I love this event, and it's one of the best at Alton Towers in my opinion, and this year was no different. The entertainment across the park was amazing, and during our visit it was super hot. So those Mardi Gras dancers and entertainers, they really went all out in that boiling heat and put on fantastic shows. What I will say is that I did prefer the previous year slightly, as I found some dance groups were bigger and more engaging than others. There were some groups with like 2 to 3 dancers in, whereas others had way more, such as the Voodoo Crew. Having said that, it was still an amazing event, and we had so much fun dancing and singing with all the groups. I will say that it would be nice to hear more of a variety of songs next year. Each group had the same songs, so it got a little bit repetitive. As all the groups are themed to the different areas of the park, it would be cool to see the groups dance and sing to music that's themed to the area. A huge improvement this year was that parade and dance party at the end of each day. This was a great addition to the event, and I really hope that they keep that next year. Overall, Mardi Gras didn't disappoint again, and I'll give it a 7 out of 10. So we didn't actually visit during the summer months this year. Personally, I tend to avoid the summer months due to how busy the parks can get, but there are some reasons why summer is the best time to visit, and if you want to find out why, then I'll leave a link down in the description below to a video I released earlier this year. but because I don't deal well with being in massive crowds and waiting in long queues, I tend to avoid those summer months. But from what I heard, summer was great this year at Alton Towers. I loved how the park gave out free perks such as fast passes and park tickets to random guests during their visit. If you're from the UK, I'm sure you can remember the extreme heat we experienced in July. The park actually closed for one day because of it, and it's understandable why they did this. But from what I've heard, during the other super hot days, Alton Towers did a great job at keeping everyone safe from the heat and making sure everyone still had an enjoyable day. If this hot weather becomes a regular occurrence, hopefully one day we'll get a log flume again or another water ride at the park. Probably will be a long way away until we get something like that, but I'd personally love to see it. So we visited once during Oktoberfest, and I'm going to be completely honest with you, we didn't have the best day. But this wasn't due to Alton Towers, this was due to the weather. There was torrential rain, which just didn't stop, which really put a dampener on the whole event. We also went midweek, so the park was super quiet, and the vibe just wasn't there. We managed to get on loads of rides though, but in terms of the event, it was just nowhere near as good in our experience compared to the previous years. The food was good, I mean the bratwurst was okay, I just felt a little underwhelmed for the price that I paid for it. But it wasn't bad. The entertainment was really good as always. It's good to see that they had entertainment on the main stage as well as in the courtyard. The vibe in the courtyard was much better in my opinion, but that's probably because it's all undercover, so the rain didn't really affect things that much. There was some merchandise this year, but nothing too different to previous years. From what I've seen from other vlogs, if you catch Oktoberfest on the right day, it can be amazing. And that's the same for any of the other events too. But from our personal experience, I'm going to go with a 5 out of 10. If you had a completely different view of Oktoberfest, then let me know down in the comments below, because I would love to hear about your experience. So now we're on to the final event of the year, Scarefest. Arguably the best and most popular of all the events at Alton Towers. This year was the 15th anniversary, so we expected something big. Now, I know a lot of people have the same opinion on this year's Scarefest, and that's that it was underwhelming. Now for me, I actually wasn't underwhelmed, but I can see why people may have been. Before I get onto the event itself, I just want to mention the closure of Jewel. It's a shame Jewel was closed for Scarefest, as it is a haunted house, but the refurb was much needed, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with the attraction. I'm also very impressed with the marketing of the refurb. The repossessed signs outside with the phone number to call, it's such a good idea. Alton Towers were really inventive with that, and even though it's just something small, I loved it. But even though Jewel closed, we saw the reopening of Hex after being out of action for months. I'm still not too sure what happened with Hex and why it was out of action for so long, but it was great to see it reopen, and it was also great to see some new effects in there too. Okay, so on to Scarefest now, and we have to start with the mazes. 3 out of 4 scare attractions were returning mazes this year, and not only that, there were little to no changes in them, other than the fact that sometimes there would be more actors than at other times. But if you caught the mazes at the right time, even though there were returning mazes, they were still very good. This year I'd say I found them more scarier than the previous years. What I will say for next year though, is that there needs to be a big change to Scarefest. If the Altonville Mine Tours returns next year, or the Attic, people are going to stop buying tickets for the mazes. It's repetitive. Alton Towers need to get inventive with their mazes again, just like they did when they originally introduced the current mazes. Even with Toxic Junkyard the last 2 years, I enjoyed this maze because it was new. So hopefully in 2023, we'll get a new maze or 2. And talking of new experiences, let's talk about the invitation. It's safe to say that this did not get the reaction Alton Towers would have liked. I personally didn't hate it, I thought it was unique and it was good to see the park were trying something new, but it just wasn't scary. If they added actors in there, it would be a completely different story. But the fact that it was just being sat in a shipping container with headphones on, it just wasn't scary. I don't think Alton Towers should bring this back next year, especially people who have done it before, they just won't do it again. use that area for a new maze, because honestly it was a massive downgrade going from the toxic junkyard to this. But anyway, that's just my thoughts on the mazes this year. In terms of entertainment, it was excellent this year. The Alton Ancestors did incredible as always, and were a highlight for many people. The entertainment on the stage was great too. Most of it was aimed at the younger generation, but still, it was good to see lots of shows on throughout the day. Merchandise was also on point this year. So overall, I actually really enjoyed Scarefest this year. In fact, I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10. But I would love to know your thoughts. What did you think of the invitation? And what were your thoughts on all the scare mazes? Let me know that in the comments below. So there we have it, a year in review for the Alton Towers 2022 season. I've not covered the fireworks spectacular because I'm recording this before it actually takes place in a few days. However, from what I've heard, it's once again going to be incredible. As you probably already know, 2023 is going to be an interesting year for the park, as Nemesis will not be returning next year. As sad as this is, it will return in 2024 bigger and better than ever after it's had its retrack. And also, next year it's looking very promising that Nemesis Subterra will be reopening. This ride closed back in 2015, and if this ride does reopen next year, then it will be such a great way to keep Forbidden Valley alive during the retrack, and also keep the Nemesis story alive too. Along with all this, Project Horizon is currently underway, which is a brand new attraction being built in the former Coaster Corner area of the park, and in recent news, it's looking likely that this could actually be an indoor roller coaster, which I'm sure we can all agree would be amazing. 2022 has been a great year for Alton Towers, full of fantastic events and entertainment, and I cannot wait to see what the park introduces over the next few seasons. But that is it for this video. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Oh, and just before I go, if you want to know my thoughts on what I think is next for Jewel at Alton Towers, then maybe consider checking this video out right here.